Station, this is Rob Navias in Mission Control Houston. How do you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, Rob.
Great to see you, Scott. It's hard to believe, but your one-year mission is drawing to a close. It's certainly been an eventful year for you and Mikhail Kornienko. And in looking back, what would you consider to be the most important accomplishments of this year in space, and perhaps the high and low points for you personally?
Well, there's still 10% of the time remaining, so I don't. I'm trying not to look at it like it's over. So hopefully, things will go smoothly from here on out. We absolutely accomplished a incredible amount of work, both on the U.S. operational segment here and the Russian segment. The Russians actually have an EVA going on next week, so we still have some very critical activities to do. But I think by and large, our time here has demonstrated not only the capability for us to stay in space for a long time and to do well, but also the capability of the ground teams to support us and the systems that keep us alive and the resupply, and do this in a way that is forward thinking towards a potential flight to Mars. We've collected a lot of data on our time here, and that data is going to be analyzed later, and research papers written. So I don't draw any specific conclusions, or can draw any specific conclusions from that. But I think it's been a great success and a real privilege to be a part of it.
Scott, you mentioned the formulation of a future human mission to Mars. This one-year mission was all about gathering very important biomedical data in that regard. Do you consider yourself and Mikhail pathfinders of sorts?
Sure. I guess you could use that term, but I think we all are. All the crew members over the last 15 years, and even those that came before that. Flying in space is a process. Exploring space is a process that you take step by step. So, on one hand, Misha and I might be at the front of that right now because we've spent a pretty significant amount of time up here, but that in no way takes away from anything that all the previous folks have done, towards that future goal of going to Mars. So I think we all are, and as well as the folks on the ground that support us in such a great way to do these flights.
You said pre-flight that your plan was not to count days or months on a calendar engaging the passage of time, but to do your best to pace yourself in what amounted to a marathon and not a sprint. In retrospect, how well do you think you did in that regard, and what lesson would that strategy yield for future long-duration space travelers?
I think I did a pretty good job at it. There's certainly a lot left in my tank to do some stuff if I need to amp up the level of effort here in the next month or so. So I do think I kept the appropriate amount of reserve. I'm not climbing the walls to get out of here, although I do really look forward to returning to Earth for many reasons. So I think I've done a pretty good job. The downside of that is now I have a little over 30 days left, and there's a lot of stuff I didn't do that I feel like I have the capacity to do now, like personal things that I kind of set aside and consciously didn't do because I was managing my fatigue level. So the advice I would give to future folks is and future people is put a lot of thought into it, because a year here is a really, really long time.
Scott, your career has spanned missions to service the Hubble Space Telescope. You commanded the flight of Barbara Morgan, in which she fulfilled the legacy of the Teacher in Space program, and you've conducted groundbreaking work on the International Space Station. How would you sum up your contribution to human spaceflight and ultimately the legacy you will leave after you return to Earth?
I've been really fortunate, like you mentioned, to have a spaceflight career that has had some variety to it, like you mentioned. And it's a privilege, and I think part of that is timing and luck. Certainly, preparation and commitment to what we're doing goes into that, but it's been a real privilege. As far as my legacy, I hope I've added to our space flight program. I know on the flights I've been involved in, they've all been very successful. So at least from a kind of a technical capability, I think I've brought something to the table, and I hope I have too in other ways. Um, like I said, to reiterate, it's just a privilege to be here.
Looking ahead to landing, this will be your second return from the International Space Station in a Soyuz spacecraft. What are you looking forward to the most that was new to you 5 years ago during your first descent back to the planet?
Yeah, the Soyuz is a pretty exciting ride back to Earth, no question about it. And people that have flown in it previously will try to prepare you for it, but I think nothing really can until you've actually been there yourself and experienced it. Um, it's definitely an eye opener, and once you get past the initial I don't know, shock of the drogue chute opening and all the pyrotechnics of various firing for various reasons. Certainly the coming through the atmosphere or into the atmosphere, the plasma that's right next to your head versus feet in front of you in the space shuttle. It definitely gets your attention. It's so much fun for me that I had said after my last flight that if I would have hated being in space for 6 months, I would have done it all over again just for that last 20 minutes in the Soyuz. It's that type of an experience. So hopefully, by me being able to anticipate what's coming, it'll be even more enjoyable this time.
Scott, the inevitable question when you touch down in Kazakhstan, what will be the first things you'll want to do, the first foods you'll want to eat, your thoughts as you emerge from a year aboard a confined environment?
Um, so it's interesting. I look forward to like fresh food, like a salad, believe it or not, stuff like that. But specific things is not as important as like the experience. I actually look forward to sitting at a table and just relaxing and having a meal with friends and family, when you don't have to worry about your spoon or your fork or your food floating away, and dealing with the overhead of that. So it's more the that kind of experience that I'm looking through as far as food is concerned. It's more of the more the experience and what I've actually not had to be able to eat up here or could get on Earth. The other things I'm looking forward to is seeing the sky from below, and air that is fresh, and a breeze and the sun on my face, um, running water, those kind of things. People.
And finally, Scott, without a doubt, this mission will take a prominent place in the history books when it's complete. From your perspective, what do you think will be the touchstone, the history making moment, the legacy of this 1 year mission?
It's hard for me to say right now because I think a lot of what we're doing here is because of the science. So I'm hopeful, and I think a lot of other people are, is that we're gonna learn a lot of information that will help us eventually, continue our path towards Mars. Misha and I are only, one data point really, or two data points, and anyone who's a scientist is going to tell you, you need a lot more numbers to draw specific conclusions. But I'm hoping what we find are areas that we need to investigate further. And we could say that, after so many months, we've seen this thing from a, physiological or psychological aspect, and we need to take a much closer look at this, before we travel further beyond low Earth orbit for longer periods of time.
Scott, I want to thank you for your time today and joining us. I wish you all the best to fly safe and have a soft landing, and we'll see you soon in Kazakhstan. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, my pleasure, Rob. Look forward to seeing you there.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you, JSC Public Affairs. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.